Alright, trickers and trickers, time for the final episode of View of the Day with Tapestry. During a diplomatic mission, Captain Picard is rushed to sickbay due to severe, unexpected injuries. To the shock of the crew, Picard dies. He awakens to find himself in an otherworldly realm, where he is greeted by the godlike alien Q. He explains that the peculiar weapon that shot Picard destroyed his artificial heart, and that a natural heart would have survived. Picard lost his original heart as a young officer when he was stabbed during a bar brawl, an event that he regrets and led him to becoming the disciplined and restrained man he is today. But Picard remarks that he would do things differently if he could relive that moment. Q sends Picard back in time 2 days before the brawl, where he meets with his fellow cadets Corey Zweller and Marta Batanides. They are surprised by Picard's change of personality, no more devil-may-care attitude. Zweller is cheated by a group of Nausicaans at a bar game, and he plans his revenge by rigging the next match. When the Nausicaans lose, they are enraged and goad Zweller, but instead of joining the fight as he did before, Picard holds Zweller back, averting tragedy but humiliating his friend. Corey leaves him in disgust. Marta is attracted by Picard's unexpected mature behavior and has a one-night stand with him, thus ruining their friendship. Oh boy. Q returns Picard to the Enterprise in the present. Instead of being captain, Picard is just a junior science officer. In this alternate timeline, he has led an unremarkable career doing routine work. Picard consults Commander Riker and Counselor Troy, who explain that his aversion to risk meant he never distinguished himself. Yeah boy. Picard confronts Q, who tells him that although the bout with the Nausicaa nearly cost him his life, it also gave him a sense of his mortality. It taught him that life was too precious to squander by playing it safe. Picard realizes that his attempts to suppress and ignore the consequences of his indiscretions have resulted in him losing a part of himself. Picard then declares that he would rather die as captain of the Enterprise than live as a nobody. Q sends him back to the bar fight, and events unfold as they did originally, with Picard being stabbed through the heart and laughing as he collapses to the floor. In the present, Picard awakens in sickbay, a captain again. Yay! As Picard recovers from his injury, he wonders if his journey into the past was one of Q's tricks or merely a dream. Nonetheless, he is grateful for the insight the experience gave him. So anyway, let's get some production notes here, shall we? This was the first time that Ronald D. Moore wrote a Q-based episode, and he was excited by the idea of giving Picard a near-death experience, and a Q appearing to the captain as if he were God. His plan for Tapestry was to follow a similar path in Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, but with Q playing a similar role to the three ghosts in Dickens' story. Moore envisaged 3 stages to the story, one where Picard is attacked and needs an artificial heart, another with Picard as a child, and a third based on the USS Stargazer. He pitched the idea to executive producer Michael Piller, who wasn't enthusiastic about the premise. The combination of that disapproval and the expected cost of filming because of the additional sets required meant that the episode had to be trimmed. Moore discussed the idea with other members of the writing staff. They focused on the incident which caused Picard to acquire an artificial heart. It had previously been mentioned in the episode Samaritan Snare and Final Mission. They compared Picard to Captain James T. Kirk, describing them as opposites in terms of development. They saw Picard being a wild child during his time at Starfleet Academy, only to become more serious later. The reverse was true for Kirk, with the staff describing him as a bookworm while at the Academy, and only becoming crazy once posted to a starship. Together they saw for a way to support Picard's claim in Samaritan Snare that he laughed when he was stabbed. Story editor Renee Echevarria said that, quote, "It made us all think we had really come up with the right story for the premise, and tying that together, I think is one of the finest efforts ever." While Moore called the episode a Q carol based on the original premise, but Piller was the one to suggest Tapestry, as he had said, quote, You have to learn to set your part of the tapestry of your life." However, the writers could not remember the source of the White Room idea, and it was only after the episode aired that James Moore contacted the staff. He had submitted a spec script featuring a similar idea. Producer Jerry Taylor admitted that the similarity was unintentional, and after both she and Moore spoke to Mooring, the matter was settled. Mooring was paid, and his contribution to the episode was acknowledged by the staff. There were several changes made to the script prior to filming, including the removal of Edward Jellicoe as the captain of the Enterprise in Picard's alternative future, and the clarification that the stabbing of Picard was not the major event in his life which would be described in the first duty. John Delancey returned to the series in Tapestry as Q, having appeared on a regular basis since his first appearance in the pilot Encounter at Farpoint. He had already appeared twice during the 1992-93 television series as a character, both earlier in the season in True Q, as well as the Deep Space Nine episode Q-less. Delancey thought that the episode for Tapestry was, quote, terrific, and praised the speech he got to perform at the end of the episode. Appearing for the first time in Star Trek was J.C. Brandy as Marta Batandiz. I guess that was pronounced. She was nervous and intimidated to work with Patrick Stewart, but said that everyone on the cast and crew made her feel welcome. However, there were concerns when she arrived on the set for costume fitting as she looked quite young, and Stewart was worried about the age difference on screen. Director Les Landau requested that the hair and makeup on Brandy should make her look older. Brandy said that this, quote, worked nicely, but they still, quote, downplayed the sex. She was pleased with the scenes with Stewart, as they managed to capture a, quote, nervousness and innocence in Picard and Marta's relationship. The episode marked the first appearance of the Nausicaans on screen, with Clint Carmichael playing the lead alien, although they had been mentioned earlier in the episode Samaritan Snare. The two non-speaking members of the race were portrayed by stuntmen Tom Morta and Dick Dimitri. The two appeared on screen without makeup in the episodes A Fistful of Datas and Emergence, respectively. A significant number of previously created costumes and makeup were included in the ballroom scenes in Tapestry. There were notes from the producers not to include any Ferengi, as at that point the Federation had not yet made first contact with them. The scene featured both Antikins and Sele close to one another, despite being at war at that time. At the time that this flashback scene was set, and only making peace earlier in The Next Generation in the episode Lonely Among Us. Several of the glasses and other props in this scene were from a collection that Paramount had stored from the 1956 Charlton Heston film The Ten Commandments. There were problems with the audio recordings of some of the scenes with Stewart and Brandy, as the camera dolly was noisy, which required them to re-record their lines later so they could be dubbed over the originals. Brandy was, quote, amazed that there was no difference she could tell in Stewart's performance, but felt that it took away an element from her performance. Scenes with Q and Picard together on a white background were compared to those in the Warren Beatty and Buck Henry 1978 film Heaven Can Wait by producer Mary Howard and director of photography Jonathan West. These particular scenes caused some problems as there were concerns by the director of photography that Q's white robes would not show up on camera well against the all-white background. They were worried he might appear simply as a floating head. With both Delancey and Stewart anticipating reshoots for these scenes, they were both unhappy as they shot those appearances. However, this was filmed late on the day. Delancey said that it resulted in both of them looking quite tired. Some scenes were cut in order to reduce the episode down to the required length. This included a one-page monologue by Marta, which would have taken place on the morning after her liaison with Picard, a scene where Picard was to report to LaForge in engineering, audio mention of Dr. Seelar, and a mention of Scobie Hall, or reference to Dick Scobie, the commander of the Space Shuttle Challenger, at the time of the destruction of the vessel. Now, okay, well, that's a lot of interesting stuff, so now let's look at some themes here. Michelle and Duncan Barrett describe in their book, Star Trek, The Human Frontier, that Tapestry has, quote, complex implications as it demonstrates who a person is by the experiences they have throughout their life, as well as who that person truly is. They also wrote that Picard was not required to pay a price for his resurrection at the hands of Q due to, quote, popular narrative being what it is. In Tara Stein's The Byronic Hero in Film, Fiction, and Television, the author describes Tapestry as showing a change in Q from his usual satanic stance and instead take on the role of Picard's guardian angel. Stein also references the aliens' increasing influence on the personal lives of the Enterprise crew, a path which Q began in the episode Hide and Q. Yeah, I definitely say it's kind of true. So overall, this is a really darn good episode and a really good character study of Picard. So overall, I give Tapestry 5 warp cores out of 5. Well, join me tomorrow as Star Trek Temper continues on with Birthright. So, until then, live long and prosper, everybody.